everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ray of Hope, the talk show and podcast with your host, Dr. Raya, on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. So I hope you had a great week. I hope everybody was able to get out and enjoy the sunshine in between these rainy days that we had. You know, it's been a mess, but yeah, we need the rain. The rain brings the rainbows. So.
Amen.
Yes. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of having my beautiful sister-in-love, my sister-in-law, my niece's mother, and her name is Dytania Hudson, or Dytania. And Dytania Hudson is a proud mother of three. She is a community advocate. She was born and raised here in Columbus, Ohio. She has a foundation called S.T.O.P, S-T-O-P, which means Start Teaching Our People. So welcome to the studio, Tania.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. Sorry about the circumstances, but for July, we are featuring justice in our community. So this is Justice July. And Dytania is going to tell you about her story, about losing her two sons and her grandson. So, you know, we have a lot of community violence here in Columbus, Ohio. And she lost one son to gun violence. She lost another son to the hands of Columbus police officers here in Columbus, Ohio. And then she also lost her grandson that was a victim of a hit and run in a vehicle. So we're going to dig deep into that, and we just want you to tune in. She has a foundation. She has some events that's going on, and we want to give her support. And at the end of this, what we really want is to change legislation and to get justice for those who have fallen victim to murder here in Columbus, Ohio. So thank you again, Tania.
Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your story and your background and your inspiration.
So, as you stated, my name is Dytania Hudson, and I am a proud mother of three. And considering losing both of my sons within 7 years apart, and within that time, I had also lost the 2-year-old grandson who was hit by a young man who continued to travel. It was a hit and run, actually, and my son Deaunte, who was killed by the Columbus police, was there at the time, and watching my son take his son off life support was one of the hardest things that I had imagined until, you know, Deaunte's death. But initially in 2009, my oldest child was shot and killed at a nightclub. He was 21 years of age. Our last words were, "I love you and I'll see you tomorrow." It was the day before Mother's Day, May the 9th of 2009. Johnny was 21 years old, and he decided to go out that night, and he never made it back home. Johnny's death changed my whole world. I had been saved, and what I consider saved, I need to rephrase that. I call it, I was changed.
Yeah.
We're all saved by His grace and mercy, and it just depends on how we accept it. But to actually know the difference in regards to God's or Yahweh's changing you is because you just cannot go back to the way that you want to be or think that you're supposed to be.
Right.
And through some of our trials and tribulations, there's supposed to be testimonies. They're tests, and I didn't understand it at that time. Johnny's death forever changed me. And God carried me through. And that's like with music, you know, Marvin Sapp never would have made it. I never understood why that song was ministering to me at the time. But it got me through because I never would have made it. I did lose my mind. And what I thought I had lost, our Father allowed me to see where He carried me from through that tragedy of my grief losing Johnny, I drank. I went on the warpath out in the streets. I was looking for the mother of the person whose child had taken mine. There were so many nights that I would sit up and just contemplate on how I was going to get even. And at the end of the day, he was keeping me. It was so like, it was like none of the things that I thought I wanted to do to hurt anyone would manifest. It changed me. I was able to learn how to love unconditionally the way that our God loves me, and you. And needless to say, I had packed up and moved to Tennessee for a while just so I could get myself together. He will put us alone in a different place, in a different state of mind. He will. Just to be alone, to get to know him.
That's what the focus is.
And again, we have no understanding. Well, I didn't. I didn't even give it a second thought because I was angry that I had been changed for 8 years prior to losing my first child. That part, I think, hurt the most because you saved me for this type of pain. And that's my firstborn. And I had to learn that we're all on borrowed time.
Yes.
And it used to make me so angry to hear that God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten son. That was something that I could not wrap my mind around. I'm like, what? He's our father. He gave him to me, and then it came to my recollection. He loaned him to me.
That's it. They're not ours to keep.
We were on borrowed time, and his assignment was done. And as I gradually learned my assignment, I'm grateful that I'm forever changed.
Yes.
I could have went back to who I was before he changed me, but he didn't allow it. I had all my naysayers say, once Deaunte, I'm going to back up. Because before Deaunte was murdered, my 2-year-old grandson had gotten hit by a young man who had just left a bar. So we can't say if he was drunk driving. We could just say he continued to go as he hit my grandson, saying that he thought he may have hit a dog in a diaper.
Wow.
And I had to come back from Tennessee because, as I stated, I had moved. And once I got back, everyone thought that I was going to be the same Tania that they knew.
Yeah.
They were expecting me to drink or hang out at the candlelight visuals, but I had to show Deaunte, my other child, and my daughter how to grieve sober. And so if it meant distancing myself from the activities because I didn't want to involve myself in that manner of grieving.
Right.
I had already grown to the point where I was like, I can't tell you how to grieve. And there's no perfect people. So what I'll do, I'll stand here and I'll wait for you. Because God puts us again in positions to be still in order for us to hear what we're supposed to do. So at that point, I watched Deaunte. I drove from Tennessee, and that morning he had to take his 2-year-old off of life support, which at the time was very devastating for us. And he began to change, and it was awesome. It was amazing watching my son transition into the young man that he was becoming as a father of 4, watching him put one child to rest and raising the other 3. It was really amazing getting to watch him grow. And so during that time, also, I had started S.T.O.P. Start Teaching Our People came about in 2010, right after I had lost Johnny, because I needed something to do. I needed to understand what was it that I was supposed to do with this type of pain.
Right.
And I looked at how, since it was black on black, which we've changed the narrative to senseless acts of gun violence in our community. Because they don't say white on white, they don't say Chinese on Chinese, they don't give other
Cultures,
cultures that label.
That label. We're the ones that always get the labels, unfortunately, because it's the way the media wants to portray us.
Exactly, and I understand that.
Yeah.
You know, I've grown to learn to change our language
And our perspective.
Yeah. So changing the language was like when they gave us Ebonics.
Yes.
That was to water us down.
Yeah.
You know,
And then they tried to make fun of us.
Yeah.
And in the same aspect, it's like, well, that's just who they are, but that's not all of us. We're all not the same.
Exactly.
And so it gave them an opportunity to categorize all of us and to put us all in a box so that, again, the media can portray us as something that we're not.
Exactly.
So S.T.O.P is very important because it says, start teaching our people.
Exactly.
It starts with us.
It starts with us.
Yeah. So can we talk about the journey that you have to changing laws? Well, let's talk about what happened with Deaunte, because what happened with Deaunte happened on my birthday, October 29th.
Wow.
And that was the first time that I went in the room, because I'm not a big crier, but I went in the room and I heard the story and I cried behind closed doors because I was so angry at the story. I was so angry at who the person was, and I was so angry that it affected you in that way. And so I didn't really talk about it, but I was angry. Yeah. And I remember crying out of anger. And I wanted justice. But more so, I wanted revenge. And I had to pray because we can't live with a vengeful heart. Because God gets the final say. Yah is going to get the final say, and justice will be prevail.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what happened to Deaunte.
So Deaunte was, he had just got home from work, and a couple of his friends had called him and said they were going to stop by. So he had gotten out the shower and decided to go down and talk to them. And it was cold outside that night, and his female friend, which she called him her cousin or her brother, whichever one she used that night, she actually told him to get inside the vehicle because it was cold. So he gets inside the car, and it was never running. There was never no suspicious moving vehicle, which the Columbus police claims that they stopped. It wasn't moving. They blocked them in where it could not, the car couldn't go backwards if it wanted to. However, while he was sitting in this legally parked vehicle, the officers get out the vehicle, never turned their lights on. For a suspicious activity, you would think that they would hit the cameras, the light would come on so it could record what was happening or transpiring at that time.
Right.
Not to mention there's 5 cameras on this property, and the only camera that didn't work was the camera right above where they killed my son. So needless to say, the encounter, there's 2 different types of encounter, and right now I don't know the legal. I know one of them is a Terry and one of them is consensual. However, Deaunte didn't get an opportunity to do either. And listening to the judges at the 6th Circuit, you would thought that they would indict or at least let it go to the grand jury. However, that did not occur either. So the officer violates Deaunte's rights. He opens the car door, he gets inside the vehicle with him. There's a struggle, as they say, but again, my son is 25 years old, 185 pounds, and had not done anything wrong other than sitting in the backseat of a legally parked vehicle.
And being black.
And being black. And that came into to play when I asked before the 10 days or however long they decide to take to get back with the families that are involved in police officers shooting. I am not anti-police. I am anti-policies. These policies need to be amended and changed so there are some sort of accountability. So back to what I'm saying in regards to Deaunte. He's sitting in an illegally parked vehicle. The officer opens the door, not to the driver. He didn't ask her for a driver's license. He went straight to my son. And when he opens the vehicle and he tries to snatch Deaunte out, Deaunte leans back. The officer describes himself as belly to belly on my child. While he's on top of Deaunte.
In the back of a vehicle.
In the back of a Impala.
Okay.
In back of the black Impala. So Deaunte's asking, what did I do? The officer's response is very inappropriate, and his language was very, very abusive. You know who the I am, and I know who the you are, get the out the car. And again, my child asked, what did I do? There was never a reply to what he had done, what kind of violation that he would have been under arrest for. He didn't have any warrants. He wasn't wanted. There was no kind of nuisance call. There was no weed smoke in the car. There was no loud music. There was no reason, no alcohol in his possession, none of those things. So, needless to say, again, the officer on the other side of the car hollers gun. When he says gun, he fires, and it hits Deaunte in the head. Deaunte's body, now mind you, there's 2 other people in the vehicle. So the young lady jumps out the car, she rose, and the gentleman, the officer, snatches him out after they've shot my child. So when his body falls forward, the officer who initiated opening the door said he didn't know where the shots were fired from, and he didn't know if it was Deaunte who had fired the weapon, so he continued to shoot, and he shot him 5 more times in the back while sitting in a legally parked vehicle. And so the officers' stories, their testimonies, incident reports were very inconsistent, which in law, as we know, they're allowed to mislead certain situations and circumstances. And so, needless to say, I was in this battle alone. At least I felt alone. I was angry. Where were all the people that knew me, that loved him, that where was the support from our community? See, when Johnny got murdered, I was out there pounding the pavement for black on black. When Deaunte got murdered, I stood alone in our sanctuary, asking my pastor to open up his doors for the media to come, and they did. So I'm going to go ahead and get where I am right now, because it's such a short amount of time. It's such a long journey. It's been 7 years, and I'm just now getting notification back from the 6th Circuit Appellate Court out of Cincinnati. But these officers shot and killed my son, was not held accountable, never indicted, and civil rights, all that was violated, still haven't been addressed. So what I've learned to do was take my pain and make it purposeful. So when we're out here advocating, I sit on the board with Ohio Families Unite Against Police Brutality. I've been involved with the People Justice Project. I have learned how to accept that we have the right to go to the State House and form our opinions and veto policies and bills and before they become laws. So what we're asking is that for accountability, that these officers amend ending qualified immunity.
Okay.
It would make them think before they pull the trigger.
Right.
We're also asking that law enforcement that are involved in police officers shooting, that they are drug test and alcohol test, even steroids, because that can make officers very angry as well.
Right.
And the reason we ask these things is because we want accountability. You could have been having a bad day, or
Yes.
you was up all night and arguing and fighting because they have domestic violence in their home as well.
Right.
Then you got to come out in our community and deal with some of our people.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we just won a major, and it may not seem that big to those who don't know, that they were getting ready to invest $40 million into a military training facilities. When we're asking for our officers to get training, we're asking that they are given the opportunity to learn how to treat people as people, human rights. We're asking that they come into our community and find out what's actually going on to help us strategize to make it better for both of us. We're not against them, we're against what they are able to do with no accountability.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're actually against.
Mm-hmm.
So along with that, that $40 million that they were trying to offer for the police officer training militant, it did not pass.
Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention, they were trying to lower the hiring age from 21 to 18. So we need to stay awake in regards to what it is that's going on in the state house.
Yeah. Well, you brought up some very good points, and the fact that you guys were able to go out, advocate, and lobby against this House bill was huge. That's instrumental. And I think what we need to do now is there's so many different organizations and foundations within our Black community. We need to bring those people together to say, look, let's show up for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the work together, because us doing it separate and apart is not beneficial.
Right.
It's not beneficial for me, for you, or for the next foundation. So we really need to advocate for each other and lobby for each other. Me being a mental health provider, being in the community, I work with teens that are troubled. And a lot of times they're just out in the streets because they lack community.
Mm-hmm.
They lack guidance. But
And it's funny that you
they
say
lack
that.
fear.
Well, they don't have nothing to fear. The seed that we were given of God in that spirit,
Yeah.
we're in spiritual warfare.
Spiritual warfare. And they don't understand that.
They don't understand it.
They
But
don't have a clue.
I'm a foster parent.
Yeah.
And I'm a trauma home, so
Mhm.
I understand, and definitely will be talking to you
Yes,
about
we
your
will.
services. But I must end this by saying that God has carried me through all this trauma and trials and
Mhm.
tribulations, and this is just the beginning of where He's going to take me, and I am forever grateful and saddened through my pain, but I have to make it purposeful.
Yes, you do.
You know, we all are born with a purpose.
Pain into purpose is what I always say.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you go from being a victim to being victorious. And that's why I told you before we got on air that you're going to get justice. It may not come as the way that we want it, but you will get justice because it was written.
It was written.
And you're standing strong and you're fighting. So I want to give you this word before we close out. So in Galatians 6:7, it says, whatever a man sows, so shall he reap. And that goes for police officers, doctors, city councilmen, anybody that has blood going through their veins. Whatever a man sows, so shall he reap. Redemption is the Lord's. So people that's running around here with this power is going to be taken away from them at one point in time. So I need everybody to repent and get right, because your time is running short. And people think that they get away with things, but they don't. You never get away with it. The guilt's going to eat you up inside. You're going to have to pay the piper. You're going to have to face you out one day. So whatever you sow in the flesh, you're going to get back in corruption if you're doing
Yes.
bad. Whatever you sow in the spirit and you're doing good, you're going to reap everlasting life through Yah. And then Galatians 6:10 says, as we have the opportunity, let us all do good to all and unto each other. So we're going to set that example. We're going to do good. But I just want people to know, y'all has the final say. And you're going to get justice.
And I am
Keep fighting.
definitely going to keep fighting. And we're not allowed to say that. It's advocating. When I used to say fight, they was like, oh no, you can't say that. I was an angry Black woman.
No,
Mother.
there's no such thing as an angry Black woman when we carry the burden on our backs for hundreds of years.
Well, I like to thank all the artists that carried me through, from Yolanda's Adams, I'm going to be ready.
Yes.
I chuckled. I was like, I'm going to be ready. But music soothes the savage beast.
It does.
And I'm grateful.
And walking in that faith. You know, a lot of us have been raised to seek revenge. You know, we used to always go after the ones that came after us. But then as you grow and you mature within Yah, you understand that your faith will carry you places that your fight cannot.
Yes. And that's where it has led me.
It's your faith.
Yes.
It's walking in faith and it's walking in your favor.
Yes.
Some people have that favor over their life that I don't care what you do to them. You better be careful what you do to them, because when you have faith and favor on your side, Yah will pull you out, will see you through, and your enemies have to pay a price.
And you never know who you sitting beside.
You never know.
Amen.
But we thank you so much for coming on and for sharing this story. But before we do go, I just want to know, how has this affected your mental health? But what are you doing other than the gospel music? And if there's anything in the community that you have that we can do to help you.
Actually, right now I'm working with a seat for Ohio Families United Against Police Brutality, and we have some other changes coming. I will keep you posted.
Yeah.
And
please.
outside of music, prayer, fasting, and being patient, standing still.
That's right. That's what it is. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We do want to let you know that you can connect with us on Instagram at ReyesRaiseALight_FDTN, Facebook at ReyesRaiseALight.Foundation. Our email is connect@ReyesRaiseALight.info. Our website is www.ReyesRaiseALight.info. So we are going to be posting Tania's information on our website when they have upcoming events. We will also keep you informed on when you can go to City Council and sit in on some of these meetings and to help lobby against some of these House bills that are being thrown out there that protect everyone except for us. It is time for us to take a stance. It is time for us to make a change. It is time for us to walk in our faith, favor, and our fruition. Everybody have a beautiful, blessed Saturday afternoon. Remember to put y'all first and just know that He's going to see you through. Thank you so much, Tania.
Thank you so
Love
much.
you, sis.
I love you so much more. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.